Hey guys, it's John and Jackie of OpenLove101.com. Before we get started, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll be notified of upcoming videos as long as you hit that little blue bell. Also, OpenLove101.com, you can subscribe to our email list and we'll notify you of upcoming events where we might be speaking or an article that Jackie might be writing. So please sign up there and check it out.
Yep.
Today, actually the past couple of weeks, Jackie and I have been talking about honesty in relationships in general, monogamous or also consensually non-monogamous relationships, and in particular, how one person can be, want to be honest, but then their partner can lash out for that honesty. We all say, "I really want to have an honest relationship." That's like the core foundation of our relationship is honesty.
Right.
And yet your partner is honest with you about something, and then you get angry with them.
I know. I know. It's weird how that works, right, guys? Because John's right. I can't even tell you how many videos that we have where we talk about the importance of honest communication, having that dialogue where we can talk to our partner and really build that solid foundation for the relationship. Everybody's going to agree that communication is one of those cornerstones for a relationship.
Absolutely.
No matter what relationship model you fall into. But what we haven't talked about is when our partner is honest, but we have a hard time accepting it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So they've spilled their truth all over the floor, and to us it's kind of a mess now. We don't know what to do with it. And so I think what John and I are going to talk about today is, what do we do with that when our partner gives us a truth or is honest about something, and maybe it surfaces a fear in us.
It can, and there's different topics, I guess, that could come up when it deals with honesty, especially in a consensually non-monogamous relationship or a swinger type relationship. You might want to be honest with your partner about what your fantasy is, or about something that you want to see, a fantasy you want fulfilled, maybe going to a swingers club or a party. And when you voice that honest fantasy, and then they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm not good enough for you. You want to have a threesome with someone else because I don't kiss you good." I mean, it could be anything.
Right.
But it really, at that point, I would feel really bad and like, oh, is this not something I should be thinking?
Right. Or it can cause you pause in being honest with your partner, because now the honesty has moved into a different column, right?
So that's what happens afterwards. So you feel shame, you feel regret, you feel bad. Maybe you feel even a little bit resentful that your partner isn't listening to the things that you want, and it's going to cause you in the future to maybe not want to share those things. Right. And I think at that point the relationship could potentially start to break down.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're doing something counter to what you're saying that you're wanting. You want this open communication in your relationship, but then yet when your partner is honest, or even when you're honest, to your partner, and they stumble with it. So it's, like, what are some things that we need to remember when our partner's being honest, or when we're being honest? Right. And I know in conversations that you and I have had, one of the really paramount things that we can be doing in our relationship, with our partner when we're dealing with honesty, is to just remain loving. And it sounds like a super simple thing to do. Of course I'm going to be loving to my partner. I love my partner. But when they surface a fear, we can move away from, we'll still love them, but our fear will get in the way of that love and that empathy that we would normally have for our partner, and we move to some kind of protection for ourselves.
So talk about a case early in our relationship where you had held something back. Like, I didn't really look at it as being dishonest, but you had an experience with someone,
right,
and you didn't tell me for months. And it was before the experience you had with someone really was before we had like committed in some way. We were still just dating.
Right.
But
it was, again, I was still living my this open relationship concept with John. I was still using an outdated playbook, right? So I'm still formatting my relationship from a strictly monogamous platform. So it was really hard for me conceptually to figure out, like, okay, so I can be totally honest with you and that's going to be okay. I was still up against that barrier. And it was, this thing that I had done with this other person, to me, it felt like grounds for there to be, for John maybe to leave me. And so, I was operating from a lot of fear. I wasn't trusting John enough to be able to handle my truth. And, we forget about that too. We start making justifications for why we're not doing something. And it wasn't that he had asked me and I had lied. I had just kind of that lying through omission. I never said anything about it. And the more time that went on, the heavier that omission became in me. And I knew I needed to tell him. But again, you combine that fear with time, and it seems like it becomes more and more dramatic. So when I finally worked up the courage, and this is the other thing about honesty that we'll need to talk about, is, from your partner's standpoint, remembering that the person that's getting ready to reveal their truth or their honesty, they've had a process that they've had to go through themselves. Sure. They've had to walk through fears, or they've had to become courageous. They've had to dare greatly in order to do this. And so when I did finally reveal this, piece of information to John that I had omitted for several months, I kind of braced myself for a retaliation. And I didn't get that at all. I got exactly what I would be telling people today to do: to be loving, to be empathetic, to understand the process that your partner's going through, and to try to get away from a really myopic view of, oh, you've done something to me. John's ability to focus on my process allowed me to settle into that truth in a safe space, which then fostered the ability for me to remain, from a really brutally honest standpoint from that point forward. Now, I can't say what would have happened if I had finally reached that point in my honesty, and then John would have been like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this, and you've lied to me, and, just like this huge tirade. It was something I had expected. Really, you kind of try to brace yourself for it, but because it didn't happen, it really created a blossoming moment for the relationship. And again, like I said, if he had been angry with me, I would have probably retreated. I would have been more fearful about being honest in the future. It's funny how we will create our own cascade from one single moment. And so it was really vital that John stayed purposeful and in the moment, and was able to see our relationship from a much larger standpoint.
I mean, all this didn't happen in that moment. I mean, Jackie
shared,
you shared with me what had happened. And first of all, for you to share that, the first thought that went in my mind was it must be really hard for her to share this with me.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Most people are not going to be thinking that. They're only going to be thinking about themselves. And that's what the secret is.
It is. It's part of it. And she wouldn't be telling me if she's going to leave me. And that's where your fears come from. You have this fear of loss. So if she's telling me what had happened and she had these fears all this time, she was, didn't want to talk about it. And then she finally does. She's not telling me because she's going to leave me. She's telling me because she loves me and wants to share her honesty with me. And she wants our relationship to continue down that path of honesty. And so when I don't know, my immediate reaction was to be loving. I was grateful. I'm like, I think that took a lot of courage for you to tell me that. And I really appreciated it. And it had to do with her being with someone else. And as most of you know, that turns me on anyway. So for me, it was probably a little easier because it's like, oh, this is making my palms sweat. Let's go make love right now and talk about this some more. So you can really take those things that might cause you fear and turn them around and find a way for it to be, erotic maybe. And that's what happened. But I really, the core of it was I really appreciated you talking to me about that. I know it took a lot of courage because I've been there in knowing how much courage it takes to share something with someone that you may have held back. It really is a scary place to be.
Well, and especially if if this is something new that you're doing, you're not going to have an open relationship playbook, that you're just going to automatically unfold in your brain. You're working against a lot of different things. So, it was really helpful for John to have that loving approach to me so that I felt safe. And it's astounding that you had the capacity to do that. I mean, I'm really lucky.
Oh, me too. And you know what? We do have a playbook. It's openlove101.com.
Well, now we do, yeah. Yeah.
And so be sure and sign up for our email list there. Check out our Instagram and our Facebook. Like those pages. And be sure and click the blue bell here on YouTube and be notified of upcoming YouTube videos. Thanks for listening today. See ya. So if you like that video, subscribe below and you'll be guaranteed to get lots of sex for the rest of your life.